For 61 years, I thought I had my life completely sorted out. I married young, brought up 2 children, held a part-time job at the town library, and spent my Sundays baking. Love, to me, was a calm and comfortable thing, the kind that sits with you on the sofa without needing to talk. I never strayed from my routine or wondered if something was missing, until one rainy afternoon when the safe little world I had built for myself came crashing down. I truly never imagined this could happen to me, and I hope you don't make the same mistake I did. It all began with the rain, a hard early summer storm that made the windows look like they were crying and turned my street into a dark, shiny river. I was by myself, drinking tea and watching the neighbor's bushes bend in the wind, when I saw him running down the sidewalk. He was soaked, his hoodie stuck to his back. I first assumed he was a teenager from the neighborhood, but as he came nearer, I saw it was Ethan. He was the son of Michelle and Gary, the couple living next door. He had to be 22 or 23 by now, I figured. He had come back to live with them a few months before after finishing college. I'd seen him cutting their grass or jogging by, and we'd share a simple neighborly nod, but that was it until that day. He ran onto my porch, covering his face from the rain, and knocked. I was surprised when I opened the door. "Hi, Mrs. Carter," he said, breathing hard. "I'm so sorry. I was out for a walk and didn't expect it to pour. My parents are out, and I forgot my key." He looked like a wet puppy, with his jeans clinging to him and water dripping off his nose. I only paused for a moment before I moved aside. "Come in, you'll get sick," he said a quiet thank you, and came into the entry, shaking water from his hair. I got a towel from the closet and gave it to him. He smiled while he dried his hair. "I didn't mean to just show up like this. I just needed a place to wait for the storm to pass." "It's no trouble," I said, trying not to look at him for too long. "Let me throw your clothes in the dryer. You can wear some of my son's old clothes I keep in the guest room." Ethan seemed a little taken aback, maybe even a bit amused, but he agreed. "That would be wonderful. Thank you." As I went to get the clothes, I felt a little out of breath, not from walking, but from a strange tightness in my chest. My husband had been gone for 3 years, and while the quiet house was normal for me, I hadn't had another person in it like this, especially a man, no matter his age. It made me feel oddly aware of myself. He changed fast and came back in a navy shirt and sweatpants that were a little loose on his thin body. "You're a lifesaver," he said, dropping onto my couch as if he'd been here 100 times. "Man, your house still smells like cinnamon. I used to visit with my mom for your lemon bars when I was a kid. You remember?" I smiled and sat down across from him. "Those lemon bars are still my best thing." We chatted for a bit about everyday things. His search for a job, how strange the world was, my garden, thunder rumbled every so often, and the rain tapped on the windows like a steady clock. In the middle of our talk, I saw how simple it was to talk with him, how he truly listened, and how his eyes, a gentle green eye I hadn't seen before, seemed to stay on me just a little longer than necessary. But it didn't feel wrong. It felt nice. "I hope I'm not staying too long," he said later, looking at the dark window. "The rain isn't stopping." "You're fine," I told him, and then quickly said, "You can stay for dinner if you want. It's only me, and I made way too much soup." His face brightened. "That sounds great." And so he stayed. I put out the plates while he dried the dishes I had just washed. We ate potato soup with buttered bread, and I found I was laughing more than I had in a very long time. He was funny in a quiet, gentle way. After we ate, we went back to the living room. The lights were turned down low, giving everything a soft, warm feeling. He sat on the floor with his back against the couch, his legs stretched out like a child. "Can I ask you something?" he said, after a long, quiet spell. "Of course. Do you ever feel lonely?" The question surprised me. I started to speak, but then stopped. He looked at me with a directness I wasn't ready for. "Yes," I said softly. "More than I show." He nodded and looked away. "Me too." The quiet that came next wasn't strange. It was just full of things we weren't saying. The gap between us wasn't big, but it felt full of energy. I saw his fingers playing with the bottom of his shirt, his jaw tight as if he was holding back words. "I used to see you in the yard," he said all of a sudden. "Reading on the porch, you always seemed so calm." I tried to be. I didn't know how to respond. Compliments were rare for me now, and from someone so young, someone who paid attention, it meant more than I thought it would. I felt flustered and stood to take the dishes. "I'll help," he said, following me to the kitchen. We stood next to each other, washing and drying without talking. Our arms touched, then touched again. The third time, I didn't pull away. I looked up at him, and he was already looking at me. That moment just hung there between us. I wasn't thinking. I was just feeling my own loneliness, the warmth of him being so close, and how he quietly made me feel like a woman again, not just a mother or a widow. But then I took a step back. I should find you a blanket, I said, almost in a whisper. He nodded slowly. Yeah, okay. And the moment was over. But it didn't go away. It stayed in the air between us, like the smell of rain. I knew then that something had changed, something I couldn't undo. The next morning, the sky was clear, with that soft light that comes after a storm. I stood in my robe with a warm coffee mug, thinking about the night. Ethan had slept on the couch. I had brought him a pillow and blanket, being careful not to look him in the eyes for too long. We hadn't said much after our kitchen moment, just a quiet good night that felt louder than words. I didn't get much sleep. My mind kept going around what almost happened and what it meant that I had wanted it to. When I looked into the living room, he was already up, folding the blanket neatly. He was in his own dry clothes and looked at me with a soft, almost sorry smile. Morning, he said, his voice a bit rough from sleep. Morning, I answered, feeling like a nervous girl as I tucked my hair back. I hope I wasn't snoring. You didn't, I said, then added, You're a very quiet guest. He nodded and went to the door to put on his shoes. Thanks for everything. I really didn't mean to make things weird. I just stood there with my mug, not sure what to say. The grown-up in me, the sensible widow and mother, wanted to nod and say, It's fine, and just let it go. But another part of me, the part that had felt so alive when he looked at me, knew that would be a lie. It wasn't weird, I said, a bit too fast. It just surprised me, that's all. He stopped, partly turned to the door. Me too. We were quiet again, unsure how to end something that never really started. Then he grabbed the doorknob. Well, I'll let you get on with your day, Ethan. He turned. Anytime you need to stop by, rain or shine, my door is open. I said it. His face changed. His smile wasn't shy this time. It was softer. Thanks, Mrs. Carter. Just call me Diane. He left and I stayed there for a bit, the sound of his steps fading away. The rest of my day was a strange blur. I tried to stay busy. I cleaned. I gardened. I organized spices, but my mind kept going back to him. Why did it feel so important? Why did I feel like something inside me had cracked open, like a window that had been shut for years? That night, I was on my porch when he came back. The air was warm and my book was forgotten in my lap. Hey. I looked up and he was there, hands in his pockets. You came back, I said, surprised by how glad I felt. I hoped you wouldn't mind. I don't. He sat near me, not too close, but close enough. Sorry again about yesterday, he said. I don't usually do that, whatever that was. I know, I said gently. Me neither. We sat without talking for a bit, watching the evening settle in. I've been feeling kind of lost, he said, looking out at the street. Moving back here, I feel stuck between being a kid and an adult. I don't know where I fit. I turned to him. I understand that feeling more than you know. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the years between us didn't seem to matter. We were just two people trying to find our place again. I missed talking like this, I said. I didn't know how much I missed someone really seeing me. You're easy to talk to, he said, and I do see you. I really do. His words felt like a warm hug. Can I ask you something, Diane? Of course. That moment in the kitchen, did you feel it too? My breath caught. I looked down at my hands and then back at him. Yes, I did. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it. Okay, I just had to know I wasn't imagining things. You're not. The quiet that followed was different. It felt like we both understood that something had changed between us, and it wasn't going to just disappear. I should probably go, he said, standing up. You don't have to, I replied, surprising myself. He just looked at me. I want to stay, he said softly, but only if you want me to. I stood up to face him. The porch light made his face glow, and for the first time in so long, I felt something new stir inside me. I don't know what this is, I whispered, but I'm not ready for it to be over. He nodded, and so we didn't end it. The next time Ethan came by, there was no rain. The sky was clear and the air was still. I was working on my flowers when he walked up. Need help? He asked, and before I knew it, he was next to me in the dirt. We worked quietly at first, moving a plant together. It just felt easy and natural. When we sat on the porch later with glasses of water, he leaned back and said, This feels right. I nodded. It does. We hadn't put a name on what we were doing. We seemed to understand there were lines we shouldn't cross, but those lines didn't push us away. They just made us be more careful. That night, he stayed for dinner again. I made a roast chicken and he helped me set the table. After we ate, he found my old record player and looked through my albums. He smiled when he found a Fleetwood Mac record. Stevie Nicks makes everything feel more complicated and beautiful, I said. He put the record on and the music started. He held out his hand. Dance with me, he asked. It had been so long since anyone had asked me that. My heart beat fast as I took his hand. He led me to the middle of the room, and everything else faded away. There was just the music and his hand on my waist. We moved slowly, and I rested my head on his chest and closed my eyes. "I don't want this to end," he whispered. "I don't either." When the song was over, we stayed close for a moment. I pulled back a little to look at him. "What are we doing, Ethan?" I asked. He looked into my eyes for a moment. "I don't know," he said, "but it feels honest," and it did. It was hard to explain, but it didn't feel wrong. I led him to the couch, and we sat, so our knees were touching. "I spent so many years trying not to feel anything," I said. "I thought I was okay with being alone. I didn't think I could want this again." "You can," he said softly. "You do." My heart was pounding. It all felt so fast and strange, but it was also real. There was no pretending. He leaned in, his eyes asking a question. I didn't use words to answer. I kissed him. It was a gentle kiss, a quiet understanding of all the feelings that had been growing between us. When we pulled away, our foreheads were touching, and we were both out of breath. "Diane," he said, "I'll never do anything you don't want. Ever?" "I know," I whispered. "That's why I'm not scared." We didn't do anything more that night. We just sat there, holding hands. He slept on the couch again, but this time the air felt warm and full of understanding. In my bed, I didn't feel worried or mixed up. I felt calm. Something real had started, and I didn't want to run from it. The next few days felt like waking up from a long, deep sleep. Ethan would come by, and when he did, the world seemed to get quieter and softer. One afternoon, he found me on the back porch. He had a small box. Inside was an old Polaroid camera. He'd also brought new film. "I thought if we're making memories, we should probably keep some," he said. I laughed, feeling touched by his thoughtfulness. He lifted the camera. "Smile," he said. The picture slid out, and as the image appeared, I saw myself. I looked older, yes, but I also looked happier than I had in years. Later, we sat in the grass as fireflies started to blink around us. "Do you ever worry about what people will say?" I asked him. "About us all the time," he said. "But then I remember that no one else is living our lives. We are." I looked at him and saw a kind of wisdom in his young face. He wasn't playing games. He was here because he truly saw me. "I'm not foolish," I said. "I know this won't be easy." "No," he said, "but it can be honest and good, and maybe that's enough." I didn't answer. I just took his hand. "I'm tired of waiting for everything to be perfect," I told him. He pulled me close, and I rested against him, feeling his steady heartbeat. Later, when he left, he kissed my cheek. I locked the door and held the photo he'd left behind. It was a picture of me, but it was also a picture of a woman I had almost forgotten, hopeful, open, and quietly brave. I put the photo on my fridge, not just to remember him, but to remember this new me. Because that's what love can do, even when it shows up when you least expect it. It helps you remember who you were and who you can still be. I don't know what will happen with Ethan and me, but for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid to see what comes next.